Some good news, bad news on today's show. We're going to try to keep it light with positivity. That's the good news. The bad news is keyword try to keep it light because it's very tough right now for the Golden State Warriors. But we're going to do our best on today's Locked On Dubs.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
There's not many defenses in the world that can stop him.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, what is the good word, everyone? On today's show, we're talking about the elephant in the room. It's Buddy Hield, my friends. It is Buddy Hield and his playing time. Should he be relegated to the bench? Should we be seeing more Brandon Podziemski and Moses Moody now that they are healthy? We're talking Quinten Post, his role moving forward on this team, and shop or stay put for the Golden State Warriors. What will they do? This is Locked On Warriors. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. We are at the Super Bowl. No spoilers for Kolsky. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win your first bet, you can visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name's Charlie Walter. I covered the Golden State Warriors for the flagship station. That's 95.7 The Game. Also covered their title run for years and beyond. It's CBS News Bay Area. That is KPIX. Matt Kolsky, my partner today. He did the same at 95.7 The Game, and then also as a talk show host at KNBR. So let's start off with the pressing question on today's show, and that is the elephant in the room. It's Buddy Hield and his minutes in this rotation. Once again started for the Golden State Warriors. Once again hit around that 21-minute mark. That's what he typically does at this point in time, anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes in a game. And once again, he struggles. 3 of 9 from the floor, 2 of 8 from 3. He did have 10 points in the game. So you look at the box score and you say, okay, he did all right. But the issue is, outside of the shooting, he truly gives you nothing. Defensively, not being in the right places. Defensively, not being able to stay in front of his man. He can't dribble. He can't attack. He doesn't set up other players on this team, as evidenced by 0 assists in his 21 minutes of play. He's a minus 11. And here is my simple stance, Kolsky. Even though Buddy Hield is on a 4-year contract, I believe, when all the incentives are said and done, if he keeps, using these options that he has, even though on paper it looks like he's a big-time part of this future, I'm a firm believer that Moses Moody and Brandon Podziemski are bigger parts of this future. They're playing 21 and 24 minutes respectively, both of them fully healthy, both of them playing their best basketball right now. I mean, Moody's shooting at 50% from 3. Podziemski's shooting at 50% from 3 in their last 5 or 6 games played. They're both hitting double figures. Is it time to pull the plug, at least for now? I'm not saying trade the guy. I'm not saying sit him down for forever, but just give him a nice warm seat on the bench, 4 or 5 games, and let's see what happens with the young guys in Moody and Podziemski. I want direction, and these two are the direction I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to some other parts of that, but I don't think it's even just that. I think it's you want to go young across the board. You want to see what you have with these young guys because, frankly, right now, I mean, listen.
You know what you have in Buddy.
Even if Buddy was not in as dire straits as he has been for 2 months now, I mean, it's been a long, rough run. Probably one of the worst of his career, if I had to guess. I do think he'll bounce back. Like, the bona fides are there. He is a good shooter. He's streaky, but he is a good shooter. It's going to bounce back eventually, but you already know you can't count on him at any given point. And what you can find out is how much it's reasonable to count on some of these young guys because, with every extra day that Draymond and JK are out, you get further from anything serious this season. There's just no route to any serious business without those two guys playing and playing soon.
And Kolsky, let me interject because they were 4-6. I guess they're 4-6 without Kuminga. They're a game below 500 after their 10-point loss to the Lakers. So they were playing 500 basketball even with those guys. Granted, they didn't have pods and they were moving pieces, but they weren't playing good basketball. So we can't use injuries as a full scapegoat.
No, you're right. I mean, look, this team before the injuries was still like a good run of getting it together and having everybody on the court at the same time from being serious, but you could at least picture it. I guess what I'm saying is, like,
they were treading water, but it was up to the neck. Now we're down to the eyes.
Yeah, when you have Steph Curry, you will do what you can to keep that dream alive as long as possible, right? So I'm willing to squint to try to see a picture of a contender for a Warriors team that's built around Steph Curry. But we're getting to the point where you could squint as hard as you want, and it's going to be hard to see it. And I think it would be a mistake, given that, to give up anything at the trade deadline that either A, could be a significant part of next year in the future, or B, could be a significant part of a trade that gets you, again, into serious business. The more I watch, the more I think you go as young as possible. And if there are any moves to be made, it's around the fringes using expiring contracts of veterans or non-expiring in the case of Buddy Hield.
Yeah, and I mean, Buddy, you're right. He's going to get better. It's probably all mental at this point. I mean, some of it's just mechanics with his footwork, but at the same time, I do think that a lot of it has bled from mechanics, taking bad shots, now into the mental game, where he is just, even if he doesn't realize it, like, it has affected him upstairs, which is very important in the game of basketball. We saw it with Pods early in the season when he broke the nose. There was clearly something mental surrounding his shot, because the proof's in the pudding over the last month with Pods, or the last month that he's played at least, that he's a pretty good shooter, And
from a more strategic, like, basketball standpoint, right? Dennis Schroeder was brought in because, especially without Kuminga, you need more creators around Steph.
And Pods is a creator, Buddy's not. Right. So it's like
Schroeder has gone to the bench already. Buddy's in that lineup because you want to stretch the floor. But Pods,
the counter argument for Kerr, though, the counter argument for Kerr has to be spacing, right? Buddy's gravity helps out Steph, helps out whoever's on the floor. And I would agree with that. But that's all he brings to the table right now, especially if he's knocking down shots.
And honestly, what's helping you more right now? The gravity of Buddy Hield, potentially, because guys will go cover him, even though he's been missing. Or BrandIn Podziemski not being covered and hitting open threes, because that's what he's been doing lately, right? So I don't know. And, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And as you said, the thing about Buddy is he needs to perform on offense to make up for some of the other places where he's not helping you. BrandIn Podziemski is going to help you in all those places. And right now seems to be the better offensive player anyway. He's shooting it better over the last couple weeks. And even if he's not, he does every other thing on the floor better than Buddy Hield, And honestly, Moses Moody does most of the things on the floor better than Buddy Hield.
Pat Spencer does most things on the floor. He does.
That's true. I'm not going to advocate for more Pat Spencer time, but but you're not wrong. And for me right now, getting certainly Pods into the starting lineup over Buddy, and I might consider then putting Moody in over GP. So you basically make Gary Payton your backup 2 for now, more or less, and bump Buddy even further down the rotation. I just think right now you bring him in if you feel like you could use a lift of 3-point shooting, give him a shot to hit a couple, and if he doesn't, he's back on the bench. That would be where I have Buddy Hield right now. And as you said, like, yes, his contract is technically 4 years. There's some outs after 2 years, and I would not be shocked to see them trade him either in the next couple weeks or at the offseason.
All right, we're going to continue this conversation coming up. I just want to talk about a direction, seeing a future that involves some of these players, which players are going to be a part of it, which Golden State Warriors aren't. And that's kind of where I interject with this, let's start seeing Moses Moody and BrandIn Podziemski, because even though Hield is locked up, it does feel like those two of the former, as compared to the latter, are more of a part of this future than Buddy Hield. That's kind of where I stand on it. We're going to continue this conversation. We're also going to get into the big fellas. Quinten Post. Could he be playing more than Trace Jackson-Davis and Kevon Looney this season? Based on the Lakers game, it is trending in that direction. This is Locked On Warriors.
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We We got 4 championships.
Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with the FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, betting on the coin toss, hell, is the Gatorade going to be purple? FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds. Feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, oh, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel.com. So bet the coin toss, $5 on FanDuel, and you'll win $200 for those live bets the rest of the game. FanDuel is the official partner of Super Bowl 59.
I don't give a damn about no damn Drake night.
All right, so I just want to see a future, Kolsky. That's all I want to see. I want to envision the next era of Golden State Warriors basketball, because this has been now about 2.5 years where it's felt the same, right? We've rearranged some chairs on the Titanic, but it's felt like it's hit the iceberg, and at this point it's sinking unless something happens. And the beginning of this year was a little bit of a mirage, right? We had the lifeboats, we were up on the lifeboats, and then it got very cold outside and hypothermia kicked in, unfortunately. That's where it feels like we sit right now. And to me, the future is playing these young players and seeing which of them are a part of the Golden State Warriors next season and beyond. Buddy Hield is not young at this point. We know what he is. Other teams saw what he was and traded him, most notably the Pacers, the Kings, the Sixers. They all got rid of him. There is a reason why, and we are seeing the reason with our own eyes. And at some point, Steve Kerr has to say, you know what? The good that he brings to the table does not outweigh the fact that we have youngsters that are waiting in the wings that need more minutes than they are getting. 24 minutes for BrandIn Podziemski and 21 minutes for Moses Moody. It's not enough to me. Get them above 30. Get them above 30 consistently. Podziemski's numbers, man, the shooting, it was so bad to begin the season. I mean, on his first, let's do the math here, 65 three-pointers, he hit 14 of them. He was shooting 21% from 3 through his first 18 games of the season. Then in December, in 12 games that he played, he was 17 of 40, good for 42%. Since he's been back in his 2 games, he's 5 of 10. That's 50% from 3. This is someone that I think we can count on as a 37% and above shooter for the majority of his career. He seems to have figured it out. Moody's been playing really good basketball. They both have limitations to some degree. BrandIn Podziemski's never going to be your second scorer that puts up 24. Could he be an all-star like Joe Lacob thinks? I don't know. If he does, it's going to be because he's a grinder. He is a player that, you know, helps the fluidity of the offense and is an important piece that way. He goes in and gets big boy rebounds. We saw it again against the Lakers. He gets some tough boards and he makes smart decisions. That is why he is going to be a valuable member of this team. And Moses Moody, I think, just as a shooter, as someone that can, you know, shoot, that always plays hard, that is a smart player for the most part and is just overall solid. I think those 2 guys right now should be mainstays in this lineup. And I don't think you disagree with me. Anything else you want to add to this conversation before we move on to the big fella?
No, I mean, again, like you're kind of saying this too, but for me, that was already the case, right? Even when there were other good options, I believed it should have been Moody and Podziemski, and generally this team should have been playing the young guys for the last 3 years. But now I think it's at a point where there's just no excuse. There's no
option. Yeah.
Not to do that. There are certainly no good options that should be ahead of Moses Moody and BrandIn Podziemski in this rotation.
No, and Buddy Hield adds a lot to the mix when he's on. We've seen it. They're 10-0 in games that he scored 18 plus. But I think all 10 of those games, or at least 9 of those games, were in the first, 2 weeks of the season. We've seen a large sample size of bad Buddy. And at this point, sit him down, let him watch the game. Maybe he gets some confidence back that way. It's not going to hurt him. And let's see what you got in Moody and Podziemski. Right. One of the big things that we wanted to see is what the Warriors have in Quinten Post. It feels like now is the time to throw him out there and see what he's made of. He was really solid in the G League and got better as the season went on. You watch some of what he can do, and obviously the pick and pop is the number one thing that stands out. He hits 2 more threes against the Lakers after he hit 5, an NBA career high, in the game against the Chicago Bulls. So he clearly can, bring the defense out, bring the centers of the other teams out, and open up the lane that way and keep you honest from 3-point range. But what is most impressive about Quinten Post to me is his defensive communication, his ability to know where he's supposed to be, and his leadership on defense. I mean, he's talking, he's telling guys to go this way. When ball screens are coming, he's communicating effectively and making the right play. Drop coverage is good. Like he's better than I thought he was going to be. And clearly Steve Kerr sees it, because after just a few games, it appears that he's taken over Kevon Looney and Trace Jackson Davis's spot as center number 1, albeit coming off the bench.
I'd like to see him start.
Same.
I mean, look, we don't have to relitigate why a stretch 5 would be helpful to the Warriors, not just now, but maybe even more so when Draymond and Kuminga are back. I mean, that is a serious answer to a problem the Warriors have had for years, a 7-footer that can shoot the ball. And it's not just spot up threes. He is very comfortable both with the ball and without the ball shooting. He's not afraid. And he's also 24, I think that helps with all the stuff you're talking about. Like, he looked lost when he first got minutes, right? And then I even heard him talking about this after the game. He was still feeling when he entered that Kings game for the first time, which was his first playing time in a while, he still was like, whoa, game speed is fast. But he said by the end of that game, he felt super comfortable. And when he stepped onto the floor against the Bulls, he was feeling good. And
he was hurt some of the offseason. Let's not forget that.
That's right. He missed time in the offseason, which I think slowed his ramp up. It hurt the way he looked in preseason. And
that's the sign of a good player, someone that gets better quickly, right? That absorbs the game, and just from game 1 to game 7 in the NBA, it's like that's the same guy. The player that couldn't catch the ball down low and that was nowhere to be found defensively and that just looked like a deer in the headlights, to the point where both of us kind of laughed at the folks that said like Quinten Post should be playing. We're like, no, he shouldn't. What about that preseason performance gave you any hope?
And to your point, that the defensive angle, like, it's night and day how he looks on defense. He was put into a brutally tough situation last night. And look, Anthony Davis is Anthony Davis and went off and destroyed the Warriors. But he was pretty tough defensively. He was in the right place a lot. He was given good effort against Anthony Davis. I mean, look, it's going to be tough to deal with him when Draymond's not available. But I thought Post was really good on both ends. And even when the shot wasn't falling at a 5 out of 6 rate like it was against the Bulls, he looked really comfortable shooting, and he did not lack confidence. I just don't, again, we obviously know what Kevon Looney is. Hey, now.
For those of you that aren't watching on YouTube, and by the way, you can find the show on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcast. It's the Peter Parker meme with him taking off the glasses or getting ready to put them on, and he sees Lowry Markkanen, and then he puts them on, and it's actually Quinten Post. But this is what the Warriors have been looking for, man.
It is. Is Quinten Post ever going to be as good as Lowry Markkanen? Probably not. Who the hell knows? But he answers some questions, some specific questions for the Warriors right now, and why not find out? Certainly as long as Draymond is out. Like, you know what Looney is. You have a pretty good idea what Trace is. There's no reason not to
make him lose the job
tonight.
Yep. Make him lose the job. Let's see what he has. And if he struggles mightily, do what I think you should do to Buddy Hield. And that's, hey, you lost the job. You played great at the beginning of the season. Your ass is on the bench. Let's go with Moses and Podziemski. But as of right now, I think you start Quinten Post. You play him with Curry a lot, because that's, don't play Post without Curry on the floor. That doesn't make sense to me, right?
No, I agree. I would like to see him out there with Steph and Wiggins, honestly. I mean, whoever we figure out at the 2 and the 4, fair enough. And I really want to see him out there with Draymond and Kuminga, because that is where it gets really interesting to me, is if he can be a legitimate stretch five and let Draymond and Kuminga be the guys who are inside the three-point line more often. Now I think you have a lineup where you can play Jonathan Kuminga at the three, and it gets really interesting.
The deadline is approaching, 10 days away. What are the Golden State Warriors going to do at the NBA trade deadline? Are they going to make a marginal addition? Are they going to shock the world and go for someone crazy? They're just going to stay put and say, you know what? We don't love our chances. Let's see what the offseason has in store. We're going to debate that coming up on Locked On Warriors.
Who cares how I feel? It's about winning basketball games.
All right, man. So the Golden State Warriors are one game below 500 right now. They are still very much in the mix when it comes to the NBA playoffs. And most likely, unless they start losing, 5 of 6 again, like they did in the month of December, they're probably going to be in the mix for the majority of the season. I mean, right now they are 2 games back of the 7 seed, and they're falling behind that 6 spot. If they want to make the playoffs altogether, they're now 4 games behind the Clippers. It's possible you can make that up in a couple of weeks, but the more you keep losing, the more LA keeps winning. It's going to be difficult. Let's just put it that way to make that climb. But look, your goal before the season for even the most irrational Warriors fans was probably, let's sneak into the play-in playoffs. Let's see what happens. And they still have an opportunity to do that. The question is, how much are they going to bolster the roster this season to make sure that they're in the play-in conference or play-in tournament, the Western Conference? Are they going to go out and spend some of their assets that they have, future draft picks, expiring contracts, and land someone like a Nick Vucevic, who's the biggest talking point? Could they actually somehow cobble together a deal and go after someone like LaVine, who can really change the game with putting the ball in the basket? Is he way too expensive? And that doesn't make a ton of sense, although he's still semi-young in the grand scheme of things. No one knows what they're going to do. I'm kind of in the camp that as of right now, I think they're just going to stay put. I think they're going to do nothing. They're going to use the emergence of Santos and Gee to see what they have there. And they're going to say that, hey, we're going to get Kuminga and Draymond back. We're going to get healthy. We're going to try to sneak into this thing and do it. And if not, we're going to reevaluate where we stand in the offseason. And it's going to be just like the last 16 months or so, because it feels like each season is bled into the next at this point. What are they doing, Kolsky? What are they doing? What's the future here?
I mean, the answer to what are they doing is everything they can. I know you're not doing this, but in general, I'm kind of over and annoyed by.
You can't pull a rabbit out of a hat if the rabbit's not in the hat, right? Even the best magicians have the rabbit in the hat at some point. There's no magic.
Yeah. There's no real magic in the world. Sorry.
Except for the Prestige machine in that movie with Hugh Jackman. That's real magic.
Film. Anyway,
a bloody double.
Listen, they cannot make magic happen and invent a superstar who's available and gettable to put next to Steph Curry. It doesn't exist.
They could try to fleece. That's the best they can do. But
yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. And they've told you repeatedly, I think at least 2 players plus a GM, an owner, and a head coach have told you nobody around here is interested in making a trade just to make a trade so we can be the 7 seed in the play-in tournament instead of the 9 seed, right? Like that's not even something they're interested in. So given that your 2 sort of necessary components in a massive deal would be Andrew Wiggins for contract reasons and Jonathan Kuminga for talent reasons, and given that those guys are, I don't know, second, third, and fourth best players on the team, I think we can rule out a major trade. I can't see any. I can't see a one that makes any sense for the Warriors, even if they could get a hell of a deal on a Jimmy Butler or a Bradley Beal. Even if it was Zach LaVine, and I love Zach LaVine, and I think he's wildly underrated.
The wild card, though, is trying to make a deal, like trading away, even though Dennis has been playing a lot better, trading away Dennis and a first-round pick and acquiring a young, up-and-coming player that fits your system. Neesmith from the Pacers has been someone that's brought up, but that would involve other teams, obviously. But someone that, maybe a team doesn't value as much because there's players ahead of him, but you and your scouting department have seen him and said, that's the guy we go after. It doesn't necessarily make sense to the Warriors fans. We're like, huh? Kind of like the Bogut trade, where it's like, huh? But it just works, positionally based. And that's the one thing that they could do. I just don't see them do.
Again, I'm not sure where that's available. I don't see how Aaron Neesmith makes this team better. Like I like Neesmith as a player, but like if Gary Payton was 20% better, how much better would the Warriors be? That's pretty much Aaron Neesmith as far as he's a better offensive player, bigger than Payton. And again, maybe there is some creative move like that. And I think that's possible. If there's something that can be done for Dennis Schroeder and a second rounder, or Buddy Hield's contract and a first rounder, that's a small move. That said,
the future, not even for this season, just a move that kind of gets rid of the misfit toys and brings in someone that's on a 2 or 3 year deal that you can, integrate the rest of the season and look ahead to the future. That's kind of the move that I'd be looking at, or also shedding payroll and trying to get back draft picks in the process. But I don't think they're going to do that either, because shedding the payroll would involve the Wiggins or the Draymond.
No. Now that's what's interesting. They can shed a little payroll, i.e.
Irons?
Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield level payroll, Gary Payton maybe, and get under the luxury, the first, whatever the apron situation. They can get under one of the lines and give themselves a little more financial flexibility moving forward, and maybe make it easier to make a big trade in the offseason. I think that's possible, even though it would make a lot of Warrior fans very upset. I also think a small move is possible, but I will say this. We can talk about the future and the post-Curry. This team is still trying to do its best to put the best team around Steph Curry. And my instinct is they will not want to use any of their significant assets at the trade deadline, because it's starting to look like the best way to put a good team around Steph Curry again soon is to wait for the offseason, figure out the Kuminga situation, and see what you can work up in a market that's much easier to maneuver in than it is heading towards the trade deadline. That said, look, man, your thought that they might just do nothing, that is looking like the odds-on favorite at this point.
Yeah, got the minus odds coming out of FanDuel. 0 points in the second half against the Lakers for Steph Curry. We've heard that too many times this season. 0 points and a half. He's just not getting good enough separation with some of the players around him. I mean, it really is as simple as that. You don't think so?
No, man. No, I don't. I really
think he's
don't.
missing shots.
How many times have we heard it? 3? 0 points and a half. We've heard it too many times this season. How many? 3? 3 times?
At least 3. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bummer. He's not as good as he was at 33, probably, but he's still so damn good. And there were always off nights. His whole career, you could find a night where the 3 wasn't going. The difference is now, like, it's unavoidable when he struggles because there's nobody else to pick up the slack, especially with Kuminga and Draymond out. Like,
that's what I'm saying. You can throw doubles and triples at him every single possession because there isn't anyone else that is going to keep you honest for the most part, and is going to exploit the fact that, you got 2 defenders on the other side of the floor. And I mean, Wiggins does his best, but
yeah, but I really just don't think that, like, is there some marginal decline on Steph? Perhaps. But I think more than anything, it's just, physically having to miss some back-to-backs and so on and so forth. For the most part, like, I still think that guy can do the job of best player on a championship contending team. The question is whether they can put a championship contending team around him. And
you're kind of arguing to my point, right? The fact that
I thought you were saying
no, I'm saying he needs more separation, and the way that he gets that is having players that can torch a defense, that can cut to the teeth of the defense, and that can, free him up a little more. Because as of right now, there's
guys that can do anything.
Yes.
Like, it's
yes. Better. It's a roster issue right now. It truly is. There's just not good enough players on this team. It's
well, and specifically not enough players who can create things, right?
Yes. That is why I brought up the name Zach LaVine, because he is someone that would help in that regard. Granted, he's like $50 million.
No doubt he would help in that regard. But also, I think people forget how much Draymond helps in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Not just for Steph. Obviously, he's creates for Steph as much as anyone ever has, but he's so smart. He gets everybody easier buckets. He's a great distributor of the basketball. And that part of the reason guys have tended to come here and have their best offensive season is because Steph is taking all the defensive attention. But part of it is also because Draymond is really good at setting guys up to score, and you can see how much that's missed. And obviously, we've talked about Kuminga's ability to attack. All of that stuff has been missed. And by the way, Pods has been out too. And however well he's played or not this year, that's another guy who can at least create something off the dribble and can be a facilitator in this offense. So,
for sure.
Yeah,
they're
desperate right now for that. They are desperate for facilitation.
No doubt about it. And we use the analogy that the boat is leaving the harbor. We see the ring in the distance. We hear the sirens, but the Warriors are, the water's up to their nose right now. I mean, they are literally drowning with every loss that they have, and they fall a game further out of that. I mean, play-in spot's going to be pretty safe. We're going to be dog paddling to stay above water unless they have a serious losing streak. Probably until Jonathan Kuminga comes back. They'll be within striking distance. But that playoffs, we mentioned 4 games, every single loss that you have, it becomes more and more unlikely that they will get to that point, which is why I say, let's see what we have in all these young players. The only way to grow in life, in anything, in broadcasting, at playing the piano, at doing your 9 to 5, you get better by reps. So let's give these guys the reps that they need. Reps, baby. Reps. Play the right guys. The rotation's going to be getting goofy again here soon when Draymond and Kuminga return. It's already at 10, 11 guys again. That's another topic for another day. It's just Steve Kerr's got to be so confused. He's like, what the hell do I do? These guys come back. Job. This guy's gone. It's a hard job right now. I mean, he is literally changing the chairs on the Titanic the best that he can, but he's just missing many ingredients to his entree. It's as simple as that. It is as simple as that.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts for the road?
I think the message is clear from both of us. Play the kids.
And play the right kids, because Quinten Post and Trace Jackson Davis are the same exact age. I just like the skill set that Post brings to the table right now more than Trace. And that's not saying that Trace shouldn't be getting his 15 minutes a night. Play him at the 4 with Post on the floor. Is that too crazy to think? Maybe.
Right now, I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world right now. I mean, when you're healthy, it's crazy. But right now, why not? Frankly, I wouldn't mind it. And listen, we know Kevon Looney will be fine if he sits for a few games. Just get Post out there and let's see what he can do.
That is all we are asking, Steve. That is all we are asking. This is Locked On Warriors. Play the kids, free the kids. And this show is free wherever you get your audio podcast. Peace.